the greatest wealth creators are entrepreneurs. There's a limit to how much you can earn from a job. But when you're an entrepreneur, there's no limit. The limit is how far you can drive your business. Making money is just simply solving problems. Whoever can solve any problem makes money in that process.
Before starting a business, what does anyone need as a requirement before starting a business?
What's the problem you're trying to solve? One of the biggest reasons why entrepreneurs fail is that failure to plan and plan well. To succeed as an entrepreneur, it's not the smartest people that become the best entrepreneurs. It's not necessarily the most intelligent people. There are some skills, some things that makes entrepreneurs to be more successful. One of them is audacity. You don't have to be very intelligent to be audacious. And some people are very intelligent, but they're not audacious. So for you to succeed exceptionally as an entrepreneur, you must be audacious. When you are raising capital, step number one is that you must recognize that what you are trying to do is an experiment and your chances of failing is very high. One of the biggest negatives that many people don't realize in raising capital is when you go to somebody and say you need capital for a business and they ask you, how much are you putting? And you say nothing. For me, that's an immediate no-no.
So guys, today we're again here with Mr. Bunmi Elesho. We had this interview the first time before where he discussed about himself and how he was able to build wealth and he was able to go from debt to wealth. So in this particular episode, we're going to be discussing building a successful business from the ground up. How you can build up a business from the scratch. This is going to be a personal MBA for anybody, wherever you are, in whichever country you are, especially if you're in Africa. This is going to be a personal MBA for you in building your business. We're going to discuss on capital, building, startup, raising, hiring, firing, everything that you need to know regarding building a business all the way from the ground up. This video, like I said, is going to be a personal MBA for anybody ready to start up a business and to grow it into becoming successful. Mr. Bunmi Elesho here is the Group Chief Executive Officer of Mediplan Holdings. He knows the nitty-gritty of building a business from scratch. He has various businesses all over the country. So he's going to carry us on this particular one. If you have not seen the other episode, or if you want to know more about him, I will link the first episode, the first interview we did in the description where he talked about himself, and you can read about his profile and many things you need to know about him. So, but this one, like I said, is going to be on building a business from scratch. So if this is the first time of coming to this channel, do well to hit the subscribe button, like this video, and share this video with 1 or 2 persons. So guys, make welcome Mr. Bunmi Elesho.
Thank you.
Sir, it's good to have you again on this special one. So on this particular episode, we're going to be discussing on building a business from scratch as an entrepreneur. But firstly, I want to ask you, why should I be an entrepreneur? Why should anybody want to become an entrepreneur? What should be the driving force? Why do you think anyone should want to be an entrepreneur?
All right. Firstly, if you're in Nigeria, you have 2 options to be productive.
Okay.
Either you get a job,
Okay.
or you be an entrepreneur. Unfortunately, at this point in time, many of our industries are not producing enough jobs for the population that we have.
Okay.
So for many people, having that option of being an entrepreneur is arguably the only way out. So that's reason number 1.
Okay.
Reason number 2 is that the greatest wealth creators are entrepreneurs. There's a limit to how much you can earn from a job. But when you are an entrepreneur, there's no limit. The limit is how far you can drive your business. Reason number 3 is that when you're an entrepreneur, you have the opportunity of actually doing what you love. because you choose what business you should do.
Okay.
So for me, I'm at a stage now in my life where I'm doing what I enjoy doing. So, and one of the things I've discovered about life is that when you do what you enjoy doing, it's no longer work. So when people are talking about hard work, for you it is easy because you're enjoying what you're doing. The fourth reason is you also now have control over your time, but that is also a control that requires discipline. So because nobody will question you whether you go to the office or not, doesn't mean you should stay at home. So those are 4 reasons that I can give at this point.
Okay, those are 4 reasons that is necessary for, or that's as the reasons why anybody should wants to be an entrepreneur. Okay,
I can add a 5th one,
okay,
which is that making money is just simply solving problems. Whoever can solve any problem makes money in that process. So an entrepreneur's job is to look for problems to solve. So when you look at Nigeria with 200 million people, with so many things that are not working, I'll tell you that Nigeria is a gold mine for an entrepreneur. Because solving any of the problems, I'll give you a very simple one.
okay,
Everybody is complaining about power.
yeah,
To solve the power sector problem in Nigeria probably requires somewhere between 50 to 100 billion dollars in investments. That's an opportunity that will not go away for the next 10 years. And whoever solves those problems will make money. So 200 million people need food, 200 million people need water, 200 million people need schools, 200 million people need clothes, and so on and so forth.
Oh, interesting. So are entrepreneurs born or made?
Both.
Describe it.
I grew up watching my parents as entrepreneurs. So from the time I was growing up, now let me backtrack a little bit. Every one of us are influenced one way or the other by the environment in which we grew up in. So if you grew up in a house where your parents were civil servants, until you meet other people that become entrepreneurs, you, in terms of your mindset, will be tailored towards being a civil servant because that's the environment you grew up with. So entrepreneurs are made in the sense that the more you grow in an environment, the more you interact with people who are entrepreneurs, the easier it is for you to become an entrepreneur. So that is, entrepreneurs can be made in that way. But some of us are born with what you call an alpha attitude. You want to be number one. When you have that attitude from birth, there's some people that are born, even at 3 years old, they're already demonstrating leadership skills. They're already demonstrating inquisitive and skills. Those people are born to lead. So those ones too are likely to become entrepreneurs. They probably won't work well going to an office 9 to 5 and waiting for the next promotion. They are more aggressive, more independent, more versatile, more inquisitive. So such people, you could say, are born entrepreneurs.
Are they going to do better than those that are not born entrepreneurs?
I would not necessarily say so. What I could say is that if someone is born an entrepreneur and now develops in an atmosphere where there are lots of entrepreneurs for him or her to learn from, then that person is probably more likely to succeed. Let me say some other interesting things. To succeed as an entrepreneur, it's not the smartest people that become the best entrepreneurs. It's not necessarily the most intelligent people. There are some skills, some things that makes entrepreneurs to be more successful. One of them is audacity. You don't have to be very intelligent to be audacious. And some people are very intelligent, but they're not audacious. So for you to succeed exceptionally as an entrepreneur, you must be audacious. And that audacity is a combination of being born with it and also being in the midst of people who demonstrate it. Number 2 is that entrepreneurs have to be resilient. You must be able to weather storms, weather difficulties. So, and some of those traits are inherent. Some people give up too easily. And some people never give up. So there's some people are just stubborn. So that is another trait that is very crucial if you want to succeed as an entrepreneur.
Okay. Now, for someone to want to be an entrepreneur, there needs to be a need or a desire that someone is about to solve. How can I go about identifying the need in the marketplace for me to be able to come out as an entrepreneur to solve it?
All right. My best advice is that, first of all, you function best where you have a passion for something.
Okay.
So the problem you should be trying to solve are problems that you are passionate about. So my advice would be, first of all, ask yourself, what are you passionate about? And then when you are able to answer that question, then the next question will be, what are the problems that you identify in your environment that you are passionate about? Then from there, you now move into specifics. That's one way. For some of us, for example, what we are passionate about and what we can afford to start are not the same. So, in that wise, you can draw up a plan for what you are passionate about, but you've got to start with what you have. So, that means you have to look at what you have and what problems can you solve with what you have. And usually the problems you can solve with what you have includes what you are good at. I started by being a consultant because I'm an accountant by training. Okay. So at every point in time, I have accounting, I have financial skills. I can always sell that. So that's what I started with, even though that's not what I wanted to do. So you need to find how to start with what you have and then move gradually towards what you are passionate about.
Okay, you need to start from what you have, then move gradually towards what you're passionate about. Because some people will say, I know what I'm passionate about, but I cannot be able to make the kind of money I want to make, and that's what I'm passionate about. So I need to do something that I just need to make money, that I can move into what I'm passionate about. Is that what you're trying to say?
That's perfectly okay.
Okay, before starting a business, what does anyone need as a requirement before starting a business?
What's the problem you're trying to solve?
What's the problem you're trying to solve? Okay, let me put it this way. At what point do I know I am ready to become an entrepreneur? What are the elements? What are the key elements? That you can leave like 3 or 5 that are key elements that will make anybody ready to dive into the entrepreneurship world.
Okay, let me use or answer this question in this manner. Some people are forced to become entrepreneurs because they can't find a job. So for such a person, for example, then what the person needs to do is to ask, what do I have? What can I sell? Do I have any skill to sell? For example, if I were to start now and I don't have a job, and I don't have any educational background to sell accounting skills or sell financial skills, then obviously I need to now say I have time to sell. So, for example, during this cash crunch, I understand some people who are selling their position on a queue. That person is just simply selling time. I wake up early in the morning and go join a queue. When it's my turn, somebody comes, I sell my position, I go back again to the queue. All that person is doing is selling time. So the first question is, what do I have to sell? That's if I'm forced by need to start as an entrepreneur.
Okay.
Now, but if I'm not forced by need and I can get a job, then what I'll advise is learn how to work in a system. Learn how systems are built. How does a proper company function? There's a managing director, there's a head of finance, there's human resources, there's production, there's sales, there's marketing. Learn those things. That's first step. Second step, build some capital. Build some capital. Third step, identify the problems you want to solve. Fourth step, investigate that sector. Who are the players? What are they doing? How do they do it? What gap am I going to fill? And then do your business plan before you start.
So those are the steps. Okay, now
that is for someone who is not forced to start as an entrepreneur.
Okay, so that's like two of it. The first one is by need, by selling time.
The first one is by need. So by need means you have to ask yourself, what do I have to sell?
Okay.
So if you don't have any skills to sell, then all you are selling is time. If all you are selling is time, then you could either do what that guy did, like queuing, or look for someone, any kind of errand you can go for people, or you could go start work as a laborer, whatever it is.
Okay.
That requires somebody to do something. That's time.
But the other one is to look for employment. So is it possible to become a successful entrepreneur without having to work with someone at all?
It's possible, but it's more difficult because there are a lot more things you have to learn, and you learn a lot by trial and error.
Okay.
Yes, because for example, if you've never worked somewhere before, so you don't really know that there's supposed to be a separation of HR, of finance, of sales, of production. When you hire staff, you will know that there needs to be a job description, there needs to be KPIs, key performance indicators, there needs to be appraisals, there needs to be a structure. How do you promote? So all those issues, if you've never worked in a standard place where those things are in place, you have to learn them. And if you are not somebody that is able to learn as you move along, might become difficult, because as you're hiring people, as your business expands and you're hiring people, you need to have some structures. Who does what? How do you reward? How do you determine whose staff is performing? It's not a question of I like you or I don't like you. There has to be measurements, there has to be matrices, there has to be things that the person is supposed to do that you can measure and determine who did well and who didn't do well. Okay. So you need to learn all those structures and systems.
Okay, but if somebody doesn't have, like in this our country now, we know about the unemployment rates and how people are unemployed there and they are jobless. So can you say someone should go ahead into becoming an entrepreneur without going through these structures or having to work with people to learn all of these things, but the person can just start and make all the trial and error?
If you can get a job, I'll advise you get a job. If you can't get a job, then go and start. And then keep learning as you move along.
Okay, any person can get a job.
If you can get a job and learn on the job. If you can't get a job, then go and start. But you have to recognize that there's a lot you need to learn as you continue to grow.
Okay, now is it a must? They said that I used to hear this saying that before you start off a business, you need to develop a business plan and all of that, put it down, write it down. Is it a must? I must have a business plan before going into business or before becoming an entrepreneur. Why can't I just have it in my head?
One of the biggest reasons why entrepreneurs fail is that failure to plan and plan well is a big problem. You need to plan at the beginning, you need to plan during your journey, and you need to plan every day. You see, what is planning? Planning is, I have to go to Ikeja. How am I going to get there? Am I going by road? Am I going by helicopter? Am I going by boat? That's question number one. If I'm going by car or by road, am I driving? Am I getting a driver? Am I hiring a car? Or am I walking to the junction to get a bus? Regardless of which of the four options I take using a car, which route am I going to go with? Those are all planning steps. So, and that's why, because you want to get to Ikeja in the most optimal manner. Now, how do you now want to have a business if you've not sat down to ask yourself, first and foremost, where am I going? Because the journey to Ikeja and the journey to Ekpe are not the same. So the first thing that planning does is that it forces you to first ask yourself, where exactly are you going? The second question, if this is where I'm going, how do I get there? Third question, if this route that I originally planned does not work, what is the alternative route? Those are all the things that you do while you plan. So when you're starting as an entrepreneur, you're even functioning as an entrepreneur, if you're not constantly doing all of this, you will meet with obstacles that will get you stranded. So that's why you need to plan, both at the beginning and throughout your journey as an entrepreneur.
Okay, I've heard that even without that, I've heard some people say that if you planning, writing down all of these things, it's just like time wasting. That you just start, and as you go, you can iterate, you can make corrections, whatever you experience, you can just correct and move on. Because what if you are planning for some things and then you get to a particular point and then that thing did not happen that way? What do you now do? Do you now have to reverse or do you not? So what should you do? Must I sit down and put something down, spend all the time, or I can just be going whatever I meet along the road? I just
My advice is you need to plan. So what I do when I plan, for example, I just recruited some people in my office and I told them that my job is simple. As group CEO of a group that has about 8 or 9 companies, my job is simple. I have 3 things I do. Number 1, I dream. Number 2, I plan. Number 3, I execute. Dream is, where am I going? How far can we go? What is our limit? Once I've determined that limit, then the next question is, how do we get there? And when I'm determining how do we get there, some of the important steps, sometimes I have up to 5 plans. Plan A, if this happens, we'll go right. If this thing doesn't happen, we'll turn left. If this one doesn't happen and the second one doesn't happen, we'll reverse and make a U-turn. If the 3 doesn't happen, we'll reverse, turn right, then turn left again. So I have plan A, plan B, plan C, plan D, plan E. So that I will have thought of so many options and scenarios that no matter what happens along the journey, I'm not stranded. So, for example, if I want to go to Abuja and I have a ticket, and I get to the airport and they say, oh, there are no flights. Plan B, is there any car hire at the airport that can take me to Abuja? If there's no car hire at the airport in Abuja, plan C, where's the nearest motor park to get a car to Abuja? If there's no car that will take me to Abuja from the nearest motor park, plan D, if I get to the motor park, where's the nearest place I can get a car that will take me along the journey? So if it is Ibadan, let's go to Ibadan. When I get to Ibadan, I look for another car. That's what a plan does for you. So if there's no plan, you get to the airport, and then there's no plane, you're stranded, you're confused. What do I do now? So if you're not careful, you start panicking.
Wow, this is interesting. So now, business plan. What are the nitty-gritty for anybody that wants to start a business? Now, you said you've cleared it out, the importance of setting up a business plan. For anybody that wants to start that doesn't know what to start writing or what to start scribbling down as his business plan, what are the steps you think you can give as a direction for putting down a business plan?
I keep going back to first question is, what are the problems you're trying to solve? So, let's say I want to solve problems of there are 10 million children in Nigeria that are not in school. Okay. So I want to solve educational problems. Okay. So I want to set up a nursery school. All right. So the first question in my business plan is, this nursery school, where will it be? That's Nigeria. So I need to first identify the problem of those 10 million children in Nigeria. That's step 1. Step 2, who are the people currently solving this problem? And why is there a gap of 10 million children? Is it that the schools are not enough? Or the schools are too expensive? Or there are schools in locations and there are some schools, or there are some locations that don't have schools? So I must be able to quantify the industry. So the first is Nigeria. The second is the industry. Then the third one will now be based on number 1 and number 2. Where am I going to put my own school in such a way that it will succeed? So that will be step number 3. Step number 4, based on where I'm going to put my own school, how much money am I going to need?
Okay.
Is it for rent? Is it for equipment? Is it for salaries? Step number 5, what kind of people am I going to need to work with me? How many classes am I setting up? How many teachers do I need? Step number 6, based on all of these things, how much am I going to charge? Who am I targeting? Who are the people that will be able to afford what I'm going to charge? How many of them can I get? And based on all of this, I have to now drop a financial plan. What is the income that will come? What are the expenses? And what is the profits? And when am I going to get to a profit point? Because when you start, you don't start by making money. You start by losing money. So the question is, how long will it take you to move from when you start losing money to when you start making money? And then you now need to do what you call scenario analysis, which is that if this thing I planned to take me 6 months, if it takes 18 months, can I survive? Can I keep paying salaries for 18 months? So those are the things that you need to put in a business now.
Okay, now good. Now it's clear now that based on all the things you've listed in putting up a business plan, money is involved, making losses, that you need to make losses and all of that. Okay, someone wants to start up a business now, but you say, I do not have money, capital. Those are, that's one of the key challenges people raise up when it comes to starting up a business. Okay, now this logical business plan you put up, you need money to execute it or to start it up. How can someone go about raising that capital, which is one of the key issues? Tell somebody, go and start up a business, go and start up something. The person was not talking about money. I don't have money to start up a business. How can someone go about raising up that money to start up that business that the person needs to?
When you're starting, it's an experiment. And because it is an experiment, your chances of failing is very high. I've had businesses that I started in the early days, that I had partners that invested money. I had to sell cars to pay back their money because the business didn't work. So when you are raising capital, step number 1 is that you must recognize that what you are trying to do is an experiment. And your chances of failing is very high. So the first thing you need to now do, therefore, is that you must raise capital from yourself, because you will forgive yourself if you don't make the money. After yourself, raise capital from people who will support you because they are either friends and family. Because if the business fails, if it's your father that gave you the money, he won't quarrel with you. Now, so that's my advice at the beginning, because your chance of failing is high. And if the people that gave you money to or supported you are not people who will easily forgive your failure, you could seriously damage relationships. So that's the first thing. And you must always recognize that when you're starting a business, it's an experiment. It may work, it may not work. So you must be prepared to ask yourself, supposing it doesn't work, what will I do? Because many people have run into trouble because they didn't ask that question. And then failing in business doesn't mean you are a failure. I've read so many autobiographies, and there's nobody I've read of that succeeded that has not experienced some failures. Nobody. Aliko Dangote that everybody is talking about in Nigeria today, people don't know that there was a time that he owned 1 or 2 banks. The banks didn't do very well. He sold them. Okay. So failing in business is not a problem. It's something you must be prepared to face as an entrepreneur.
Okay, now you talked about the person raising money starting from himself, then family, before you think about people. So if the person say, I don't have money for my own self, and my family members are not buoyant to give me money to start up. So, and I need to start up my business. What's the way forward?
One other, I said there's some skills you need to have in raising capital. One of the biggest negatives that many people don't realize in raising capital is when you go to somebody and say you need capital for a business, and they ask you, how much are you putting? And you say nothing. For me, that's an immediate no-no. You want to carry out an experiment, and you're not putting anything yourself. So why should it be my own money that will be at risk? You have nothing to lose. So professional investors, the first thing they are looking for before they support anybody is this person going to go bankrupt if the business fails? Has this person put everything he has inside the business? If the person has, then you can begin to look at what the person has to say. Because if the person has put everything he has into that business, that person is not going to sleep if that business is not working. But if the person hasn't put in anything, if the business doesn't work, he will just come and say, Oga, we tried, it didn't work. He has nothing to lose. So rule number one, when you become a professional investor, is if anybody comes to you for money and he himself is not putting in everything he has in that business, the answer is no.
Straight up.
The answer is no.
So that means another way around it could be that, okay, since you don't have money and you cannot start up a business, you can go and look for a job and just start up from that. And
remember I said, if you can find a job, get a job and build some capital.
That's true. Okay, now, must anybody have educational qualification before you can start up a business? Then you must have gone to school, graduate, and all of that. Or even somebody without any of educational qualification can start up a business and build it to be successful. Is it possible?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Explain.
Let me start by also saying some fundamental things that many of us don't know. Going to school, when you are doing business, for example, what you learned in school is not necessarily what you use in your business. You have graduates of English that are managing directors of banks. What has English got to do with running a bank? So the biggest lesson you learn from going to school is that knowledge and acquiring knowledge is a trait that you develop.
Okay.
So you go to school to learn how to read. But after school, you now read in order to learn. So even if you didn't go to school, you have to constantly be reading either journals in your industry, reports in your industry, etc., in order to continue to learn. Because learning is a skill you must have till the very last day on this earth.
Now, when I was in Warri Delta State, I've met a billionaire that doesn't even know how to write his or her name. How did it happen? So is it possible for someone to grow up to that magnificent wealth without even knowing how to read or write?
You see, you miss one fundamental point.
Okay.
Because he didn't know how to read or write doesn't mean he wasn't learning. For him to have built that business, even if it is a trading business, he must have learned what makes a product sell. What price do I need to buy a product? And what price must I sell for me to make a profit? He must have learned all of those things.
Okay.
So learning is not just in literature, even though literature is a very fundamental part of learning. But it's not just in literature.
Okay.
So it's all about acquiring information that helps your decision making. So if you're going to succeed in life, you must keep learning. And one of the interesting things about life is that things are constantly changing. The environment is changing. Technology is changing. People are changing. Tastes are changing. Competition is changing. Even the regulatory environment is changing. So you have to keep learning, to keep upgrading and keep updating Otherwise, you become irrelevant.
Mm.
When in those days when internet started, we had cyber cafes.
Yes, yes.
Do you see do you see them anymore? Everybody's phone is a cyber cafe.
That's true. They're packed up.
So you have to keep upgrading yourself because the environment is changing.
That's true. That's true. Okay, now someone will say, okay, and now I've started my business. I need to generate customers. Are there strategies that someone can go about generating customers for the business the person has started?